up, swashbucklers? You're listening to Under the Crossbones. My name is Phil Johnson. I'm your host for the show. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you very much for telling your friends about the show, because that's how the show grows. That's the only way the show grows, is when you go out and you tell people about it. So thanks for doing that and help me keep the pirate ship afloat here. This is episode number 86. Fun fact about the number 86. You may have heard the term being 86th, which is being thrown out of a place or banned from a place, right? So I found out where that comes from. The term, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, the first verifiable use was in a book from 1944 about John Barrymore, who, of course, was a movie star in the 20s, famous for his acting and even more famous for his drinking. And so there was the first use of it. And they think there's lots of different explanations and theories for where that term came from, but they think that the term 86 comes from Article 86 of the New York Liquor Code, which gives the reasons for a person being able to be removed from a bar. So there you go. It's the New York Liquor Code and John Barrymore. That's why we have the term being 86th. So you know who's not been 86th from this show is my guest today, Helen Hollick. That was a terrible segue, wasn't it? Yeah, whatever. Helen Hollick is a fantastic author. She's the author of the Sea Witch Voyages, which is a book series that you can check out that we'll talk a lot about. And she's also the author of a nonfiction book called Pirates, Truth, and Tales that will be out in May. So I'm sure there's some Amazon pre-ordery thing that you can do with that you can check out. So we're going to talk about all her books, plus her Pendragon Banner series, and she's got a lot of books. She's a prolific author, and we had a great talk. She also has a super cool British accent. So you can't, how would you not want to listen to a British accent for half hour or so, right? Everybody wants to do that, except maybe British people, because they probably hear it too much. But yeah, so great talk we got coming up. I am coming to you today live from Chicago, Illinois, where I am actually on a day off from my tour. I've been out here since last Thursday or so. And the shows have been interesting. This is the first time I've come out here with a bunch of this new material that I've been working on. And it's been interesting to see what I can do with each crowd, which is always, that is the constant job of a comedian, is to read the crowd and see what they're going to react properly to. But we always have this internal battle, or at least most comics do, of how much do I want to entertain, just frothy entertainment, versus how much do I want to make a point about something, or educate the crowd about something, or do something with some depth and some meaning to it, right? And so that has been, when I'm doing more challenging material, I'm talking about race, I'm talking about social issues, I'm talking about things like that, but I'm doing it in a non-obviously political way. And what I mean by that is I do not do any obvious political jokes. I do maybe two. There's maybe two obvious political jokes in the hour show that I'm working on, but I do not do obvious political material. Now, other people can do that, and they're doing great with it. Christopher Titus, his brand new hour that he's working is all political material. Jackie Cation, who is definitely not known as a political comic, is doing some overtly political material. I tend to make a little more roundabout way at it, where I will talk about the things that are going on in my own life that happen to maybe have some sort of a message or a meaning or a depth behind them, but they're still frothy on the outside. I guess it's like a good cappuccino. I am deep and flavorful, yet frothy on the outside. I don't know if that allegory works, or analogy. I don't know the difference between an analogy and an allegory, which is an even bigger problem for a writer. So it's been that struggle this week, is finding out what I can do with each of these audiences. And at a few of the shows, I've gone back to older material that's a little more on the entertainment-y side. And on some shows, I've been able to do some of the newer stuff that is a little deeper and a little more challenging as material. Now, it's all funny. There's jokes, obviously. I'm not up there just preaching about anything. That would be lame. That is not my job. My job is to be funny. So all of it's funny. It's just which direction do I want to go with that funny. So it's been really interesting. And there are more tour dates coming up, of course. Tuesday, April 11th, the day this show comes out, if you're listening on that day, I will be at Smokestack Brew in Mishawaka, Indiana. On Wednesday, April the 12th, I will be at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Sioux City, Iowa, featuring from my buddy Grant Lyon that night. That's the only not headlining show on this one, but Grant is super funny and super intelligent too, so you're going to dig him. That's going to be a great show. Thursday, April the 13th, I am at Rock Point in Mandan, North Dakota, which is on a street called Pirates Loop. Let me repeat, it's in North Dakota. I'm pretty sure they don't have water in North Dakota, let alone pirates. So I'm not exactly, but it's on a street called Pirates Loop. Weird. Friday, April the 14th, I will be at Piggy's in La Crosse, Wisconsin. And then later this month, Saturday, April the 29th, I'll be back in California, headlining at the Tasting Room in Fresno, California. So thanks to everybody that's come out to the show so far. They've been fun. The first show last Friday was slim, shall we say. It was 10 people, but they were 10 pretty good people. And I was playing Dangerfields in Shakopee, Minnesota, which is it's a restaurant, and they do it in the bottom. I want to say it's the basement of the restaurant, but there's a bar and there's tables, and it's the lower level of this restaurant. So we did a show for 10 people who were into the show and had a good time. The next night we had like 60. The place was full. It was great. It was fantastic. So those things happen. And last night on Sunday, where was I last night? I was in Wisconsin at I was in Delavan, Wisconsin, at a place called the End Zone. Yeah, they go quick when you do a lot of shows. Forget where it was. And that was a super fun show. That was a great, that was one of those shows where I misread the crowd a little bit at first, and I was able to go deeper with them than I thought they were going to. I underestimated them just a little bit, and they were awesome. So there you go. You know what else I did while I was in Minnesota? I was in the Minneapolis area, and I went to Paisley Park. If you're a Prince fan, you know what Paisley Park is. If you're not a Prince fan, Paisley Park was Prince's home and production facility. His recording studios, his filming studios, all that kind of stuff is all right there in Chanhassen, Minnesota, right outside of Minneapolis. And I had gone to Paisley Park about, 4 years ago, something like that, last time I was in Minneapolis. And all I did was I drove into the parking lot, I took pictures of the building, and I freaked out a little bit. Because I am a huge Prince fan. If you listen to the episode from, it's almost been a year since he passed away. If you listen to that episode from last April, you can hear I'm a big, big Prince fan. And when I went to Paisley Park, I didn't go in the lobby. I didn't knock on the door. I saw a tour bus parked in the back. I was like, somebody's home. And I regret not trying to go in and say hi to somebody at that point, because now obviously he's gone. It's a different experience now going to Paisley Park. And because now it's a museum, and there's a tour, and there's a tour guide, and I wanted to go, I wanted to do it just because. And it's a fantastic facility. It's beautiful inside. It actually doesn't look like much from the outside. It's white, kind of looks industrially a little bit. It's not a great looking building on the outside. Inside is amazing. It's fantastic. And but that was not the way that I wanted to visit Paisley Park. But I did, because I had to. There's no way I wasn't going to. And I think it was $40 or so to get in on the regular tour. They've got a VIP tour that has some other stuff. But it was amazing. But it was weird because it's also a new thing. It's not dialed in yet like other, tours of famous people's homes that you might go to. And like Graceland, say. It's actually the people that run Graceland are also running the tours at Paisley Park. And it was strange because the tour guides are already like scripted and things like that, and it just loses a little bit. They did make a nice reference to the idea that going to Paisley Park is a sort of pilgrimage for Prince fans, and that the wounds are still pretty fresh. It's just under a year, and so they were, they said if whatever feelings you're having during this tour are perfectly okay, and all that kind of stuff, and that was nice. I didn't cry. There was a couple of times where I came close, but it was fantastic. Just being in there, soaking up the vibe of the creativity, and it was weird listening to a tour guide who wasn't telling us really anything that a Prince fan wouldn't already know. There was we pretty much knew everything they told us. I felt like I could have given a better tour possibly. And I've never even been there before, but I thought there was a little more depth and insight that could have been brought to some of the things. But they take you into the atrium. The atrium is beautiful, and in the atrium is actually where Prince's ashes are laid in a small inside a small model of Paisley Park, actually, and it's elevated up above where what they call the little kitchen. It was his favorite place in the whole place. So that's where his ashes are laid. So you spend some time in there. There's a lot of instruments and clothing to look at in various rooms and things like that. What they didn't even mention on the tour, and they just kind of let you find out by yourself, is they have his Hohner Telecaster in a nice display there, which is, if you've ever seen earliest Prince, all the way through his career, even up to the Super Bowl performance in 2007, it was a blonde Telecaster with sort of a leopard print pickguard on it, and that was like his first main guitar. You see it in his earliest stuff, you see it in his latest stuff. That was his go-to, even outside of the weirdly shaped ones. He always went back to this knockoff Telecaster made by Hohner. And for a guitar player like me, when you are faced with an iconic instrument like that, it takes your breath away for a second. Just to know how much music came out of that instrument is just mind-blowing, especially for just a knockoff, not a great guitar to begin with, but it's what the player does with it. So I stood there just looking at the Hohner Telecaster for quite a while, and it was amazing. And I've had that happen with, like, I've seen the Stratocaster that Hendrix played the Star Spangled Banner on at Woodstock, things like that. It knocks you back a little bit to see those kinds of things. But they take you into his Studio A at Paisley Park, where a lot of amazing albums were recorded. They take you into the sound stage, where he used to throw parties and film videos. They take you into the NPG Music Club, where he threw private parties for local Minneapolis citizens who would come down, and he would try out new material on them and things like that. It was sort of his own little personal open mic, I suppose. So it was, if you're a Prince fan, it is definitely worth doing. Go to Paisley Park, take the tour. I don't know if the VIP tour is worth it. It's quite a bit more, but I didn't take it, so I don't know what extra stuff you get on there. But definitely worth doing. If you are not a Prince fan, I don't know if it would be worth it for you, unless you kind of know a little bit more than the tour guides are telling you. But even if you're a nominal Prince fan, I think it's worth doing. So what I did then with the rest of that day, I got out of there, and I was just like, I didn't feel like going back to my hotel room and working. And so I thought, I'm just going to continue my Prince tour. So I went to Google, and I looked up Prince landmarks in Minneapolis. And so I ended up just driving around Minneapolis all day. By the way, this is a great way to find just to see a new town that you're in, is to visit landmarks like this, because you end up driving all over the place. But I saw the first recording studio where Prince laid his very first demos with Grand Central. I saw the Capri Theater where he did his first solo shows. I saw the apartment building that his parents lived in when he was born. I saw the house that they used in filming Purple Rain for all like the domestic scenes and things like that. So it was really great to, just go see some landmarks. I went to Electric Fetus, his favorite record store in town, stuff like that, just to kind of, in my brain, commune with my hero a little bit, who unfortunately is not around any longer for me to possibly commune with in real life. So it was a really interesting day. I had a much stronger show that night. Fortunately, we had a much stronger crowd too. But when I do those kinds of things, when I'm on the road, when I sort of commune with my heroes a little bit, it makes me put out that much more energy in my own performances right after. So it's been an interesting tour. I haven't cried. I didn't cry the whole Prince tour. Oh, man. There was a couple times in Paisley Park where it was a little bit tough to not do that. I didn't buy anything in the gift shop. They pop you out into a gift shop, of course, but it's still new. It's not much of a gift shop. It's in a tent, literally. And I didn't buy any. I thought it felt weird to buy a souvenir from that. Like, I don't even know if I haven't been to Graceland yet. I don't even know if I'd buy a souvenir at Graceland, just because it feels weird when you're visiting somebody's house like that. I mean, it was different when we were at like Windsor Castle or Kensington Palace. These are royal people. There's still people living in these places, and it was there we could buy souvenirs. But when it's like that kind of place where there's, ghosts of the past there and things, I didn't buy a souvenir. And usually I would buy a T-shirt, but didn't this time. All right, so let's get into my interview with Helen Hollick. Like I said, Helen is the author of the Sea Witch Voyages, and which are out now. That's a multi-book series that you can grab. She's also the author of Pirates, Truth, and Tales, which is a nonfiction pirate book that will be out in May. So let's get into, right now, my interview with Helen Hollick. Enjoy. you were an author of many, many things, but today we're talking about your pirate books, and you have the Sea Witch Adventures, which I am about 120 pages into right now and very much enjoying, and then you have a new book coming out in May called Pirate Truth and Tales. So let's talk about those a little bit, and then we'll talk about your other stuff.
It's the Sea Witch Voyages.
Oh, Sea Witch Voyages.
The Sea Witch Voyages, yeah. It's basically, well, I wrote it because I liked the Pirates of the Caribbean, the first movie.
Okay.
And I wanted to read a book. It's the same sort of thing, adventure, bit of fun, a little bit of fantasy, but with adult content. And I couldn't find a book to read, so I thought, well, I'll write my own then.
That's a good enough reason to do it. Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, this book doesn't exist. I'm going to make it. I like that.
That's right.
I like that very much. So now how many books are there in that series?
There's 5 at the moment. I
Okay.
should be working on the 6th one soon, and there very probably will be more.
That's fantastic. I am in the midst of writing my first novel, and my main goal first was to see if I could write 80,000 words of one story. To be able to do 5 or 6 books on a single story seems mind-blowing to me. Were there ever points in there where you thought, I'm kind of out of ideas for these characters?
The second one in the series was difficult.
Okay.
I think because I wrote Sea Witch and I was expecting it just to be, a one-off single novel.
Uh-huh.
But then I fell in love with my character, I have to say. And I thought, right, okay, I'll make this into a series. And then I thought, but what am I going to do for a second adventure?
Uh-huh.
That was hard because I hadn't really sort of planned in advance, you know. But once I got going with that, and the other thing I do find is sometimes a bit tricky is putting in, little hints and things that will then appear to be resolved in future episodes.
Okay.
I've sort of, now that I've more or less planned the series out, that is okay. So, so when you read book 5, you think, that's what that meant back in book 3.
Yeah, it's nice when you've got, I suppose planning ahead for that kind of stuff gives you that sort of long-term range where you can then tie up all those loose ends. That's really great.
Yeah. For backstory, each one I will say is perfectly readable on their own.
Okay.
As an adventure, but my main pirate, Jezemiah Acorn, his name is.
Uh-huh.
His backstory comes out through the whole series.
Nice. And so, like I said, I'm about a third of the way into the first one now, and I'm not a fiction guy generally, except my guilty pleasure is Star Wars novels, but which are sometimes well written and other times not so much. But but diving into this, I was pretty well sold about 20 pages in. And I was like,
brilliant.
yeah, I'm definitely going to read the rest of this, and I'm really finding this story interesting. For anybody that might be wondering about the Sea Witch title, and maybe how much does it have to do with pirates? It has lots to do with pirates. It's definitely a pirate story, for sure. And what I found, there was a couple things that I found really interesting about it so far. And one of them is that while the language is dense, it doesn't seem overwritten, which I find to be a problem. Yeah, with a lot of stuff that I read where they're trying for dense, but it comes off as overwritten. And yours doesn't. Like, I was looking for words that didn't need to be there, and I found very few of them. Do you have a weeding out process? Do you find that some of your early drafts are overwritten, and then you kind of edit that out of it?
Yeah, I tend to overwrite for my first drafts because it's a lot easier to cut out than it is to add in.
Certainly.
And one of the tricks, really, especially for dialogue, is read it aloud. Sure. So you can actually hear it rather than just actually reading it. Because when you read it, aloud, you can then hear the rhythm of the voice.
Right.
If you like, and then you sort of think, oh, hang on, they wouldn't say that. There's too many words there.
Yeah.
And the other thing that really, as a writer, is for anyone listening, you must be ruthless with yourself.
Yes.
Even if you've spent weeks, writing this, even one scene, you've still got to sort of think, no, I've got to cut this out. Be really hard. And the other thing I sort of find, if I'm reading something back and I find that I'm skipping words or skipping lines, I'm like, right, okay, that's it. It's got to go.
Yep.
If I'm skipping it, the reader's going to.
Yeah, that's interesting. I actually have a similar system because I make my living as a stand-up comedian, and there the editing is absolutely ruthless, and it has to be. Where if I can say it in 4 words and I've got 5 on the page, that 5th word gets cut out. And so I find when I write when I write prose or when I'm writing something that is not a joke, I find that I do the same thing where I have to, that doesn't need to be there. And so I just ruthlessly edit. And it's good to see that kind of ruthless editing, but with still having a very dense, very conversational language in the book that with tons of different accents and things like that. It's a pretty amazing how you wrangle all that stuff. The other thing I noticed was you seem to have a very detailed knowledge of what goes on board a ship while it's happening. Do you have some sort of ship background?
None at all.
None at all.
The biggest I've been in is a rowboat.
Okay.
Yes. Apart from things like the Victory and the Cutty Sark here in England, obviously, but they don't go anywhere.
Right.
No, absolutely none at all. I'm pretty convinced that I must have had relatives in the past.
Okay.
I've got something in my genes.
So where did you come by that comfortable knowledge of that type of scene?
I honestly don't know. It's just there.
Interesting.
Yeah, I just know it. I do have a very good editor who does check my sailing bits. James L. Nelson, one of you're an American writer.
Nice.
You must have come across his books.
I probably have, yes.
Yes, he's a good friend of mine, so he runs through all the sailing bits for me. He picks up a couple of obvious bloopers. Sometimes I think, how on earth did I write that? But most of the time, actually, he says, yes, that's fine. Or he'll just drop in a little thing to sort of say, a sailor probably wouldn't say that, they'd say this type thing. But no, honestly, I don't know how I know. I just do.
Interesting. So, maybe you've missed your real calling. You should be sailing a large ship.
Yes, maybe I should. I'm probably a bit old now, but... one of my dreams would actually, to go even on a short voyage on a sail ship, especially a tall ship.
Oh, sure.
But, I don't think that's ever going to happen, so never mind.
You never know. Well, anything's possible. So now you're living there in Devon, England. Are you near the coast? I'm not quite sure exactly where that is.
I'm about 14 miles from the coast.
Okay.
We only moved down here in 2013, so we've not been here that long. Before then, I lived in London.
Yeah.
But to the fourth book in the series, I've forgotten thing, Ripples in the Sand, is actually set in Devon because my editor lived down here.
Oh, interesting.
Little did I know that I was going to, very soon move to within, 14 miles of where my editor lives.
So now that's an interesting move. Why the decision to move from London to someplace much smaller like Devon?
Well, basically, we had the opportunity financially. And my daughter's got horses. She's actually a semi-professional show jumper.
Oh, wow. Neat.
And back in, we lived on the outskirts of London near Epping Forest in Essex. But the horses were always kept at livery yards and things. So we had the financial opportunity and we thought, right, let's move somewhere where we can keep the horses at home and she can do her show jumping. And we've always wanted to live in the country. And I don't know, I just suggested, what about Devon? And we all looked at each other, yeah, why not? So we did. Best thing we ever did.
Oh, that sounds really nice and sounds like a very creative family as well. Show jumping is a bizarre and strange sport, but I enjoy it. Yes,
I think she's balmy. She's absolutely mad, my daughter. Especially when they start getting big. When the jumps are bigger than me, I sort of think, oh.
Yeah.
I'll stick with pirates, I think.
There you go. Exactly. So now, because we're going to talk about your upcoming book here in a second, had you had some experience with pirate history before doing the Sea Witch stuff, or did your learning in that, of all that history, that period of history anyway, come during the writing of Sea Witch?
It actually came before writing Sea Witch.
Okay.
It was really, again, because I'd seen the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, which thoroughly enjoyed it. But I sort of thought to myself, well, I wonder how much of that was true.
Okay.
Historically, obviously realising that the movie itself obviously wasn't. But I thought, well, okay, well, so how much truth is it based on? So I picked up a couple of reference books and read through those. Got really absolutely gripped by the reality of pirates. I came across the part of where the Spanish fleet went down off the coast of Florida.
Yeah.
I just thought to myself, oh, that would make a superb novel.
Okay, yeah.
and really, it sort of sprang from there. It was, when I read about Henry Jennings, sort of waiting for the Spanish to collect all the treasure, and then he calmly sailed in and just removed it all from the warehouse. I just thought, yeah, that would make a really good story, but I should make that my pirate, not Aaron Henry, which is, of course, what I did.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've got to that bit yet.
I have. And the funny thing is, it's like one of those things where when you start thinking about something, then you start noticing things. I recently talked with Alan Baylog, who is an author who wrote an entire nonfiction book about the 1715 treasure fleet, that exact same period of time right there in that same expedition. And so when I saw it in your book, I was like, oh, there it is again, because I hadn't really thought about it that much before then. Now it seems to be coming up all the time. But I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, and from there I just sort of thought, okay, so if that was a scene in a novel, and then the whole thing, I just got the whole idea for Sea Witch. It just came. I was actually on holiday on vacation at the time, so that was sort of my reading while I was away.
Sure.
And I went for a walk. It was actually down on the coast of England here in Dorset. On our last day, I went for a walk along the beach, and it was a typical England weather. It was a bit rainy, but that was great because that meant I had the beach to myself. And I had all my characters apart from my pirate, and I even had the name of the ship. I thought I was going to call her Sea Witch, and I had more or less all the basic plot anyway. And I sat on the rock and I looked at the English Channel, which was very cold, wet and grey, and I imagined the Caribbean, nice blue sky, beautiful blue sea, and that proves I've got an imagination.
Right.
And I looked up, and a few yards away, about 10 yards away, I just saw a pirate in full pirate regalia. He had a gold acorn in his ear, and blue ribbons in his hair, and he touched his hat and nodded, and I said, "Hello, Jezemiah Acorn." And I swear that story's true.
Oh, that's so great. That's wonderful. Boy, I need to sit on a rock somewhere.
Yes. But as soon as I got home, I started writing. I mean, I wrote Sea Witch in just under 3 months.
Wow.
It just literally came. It's. I even wrote over Christmas. The only day I stopped was Christmas Day. I thought the family wanted to see me a little bit, and I wanted my presents. But apart from that,
right. I know that work ethic well.
So it just came, but I had researched the history side thoroughly.
Okay.
Before I started writing, so I had a lot of notes. I wanted to base it on historical fact, even though I knew I was going to have a bit of fantasy in it, and say that the whole point of the Sea Witch series is that they're for fun. I write them for fun, and they're meant to be read for fun, not meant to be taken seriously. But the thing is, even if you're writing a bit of fantasy, as long as you can have the feeling of it is believable.
Right.
If you're doing something that does involve history, get your history right.
Yes.
And then that makes the rest of it believable. The only caveat I will say to that is that I do mess about a little bit with some of the dates.
Oh, okay.
But I mention that in my author's note that I have changed a couple of dates because it fitted in with the story better. Sure. But I think that's fair enough because I've been honest about it.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting, not only that there was a real historical stuff in there, which absolutely does contribute to the believability of the story, but that you were using actual historic characters. Henry Jennings is in there. Some of the other historical pirates are in there, which seems to be almost a becoming more common device in pirate fiction in the last 5 or 6 years or so. And like in everything from books to Black Sails, say, where they're really mixing, fiction and historical fact over there. And I'm so glad now that our books are marked as fiction or nonfiction, because I was just thinking in 150 years from now, I don't want people looking at these books going, well, I don't know if is this real or is this not real? Because like we look at the Charles Johnson book now, we go, I don't know which parts of this are real or which ones are not because it wasn't marked, And I was thought, I wonder if there's going to be any of that confusion 100, 200 years from now, looking back at the books and things that we have now.
I agree with you. I mean, there's often debates about historical fiction, about how accurate should it be.
Right.
And I sort of feel that, yes, I think the important facts should be factual. Mm-hmm. But the key is the word fiction. It's a story.
Right.
You know, it's not meant to be non-fiction. If you want to know the facts, then read the non-fiction.
Right.
You know, a story is the author's interpretation of what was happening. Mm-hmm. Or a little bit like mine, is saying, you know, yes, I had, you know, bent the facts a little bit, but I've owned up to it, and I've said what I've done and the reason why.
Sure.
And I think that's fair enough.
Oh, yeah. And I think in a situation like that where you're saying this is fiction, then we can bend the rules a little bit. And like I said, I'm just glad everything is actually marked as fiction now, so it doesn't get confusing.
Yes. Yeah. Well, as you say, I mean, reading mine, you could look at mine and, you know, I mean, well, book 3 is Blackbeard. Has quite a prominent part. Most of them you'll be meeting Henry Jennings and Woodes Rogers. Governor Spotswood of Virginia and everything. And yeah, as you say, you could read that as non-fiction and think, oh, that's what they were like. That's the sort of character they were, which is, you know, complete nonsense because obviously I've made it up, you know, completely.
Well, let's flip over to the other side. Tell me about the book that you have coming out in May, Pirates, Truth, and Tales. That is a non-fiction book, yes? That's
non-fiction, although it's got little bits of fiction in it as well.
Okay.
I wanted to do something a little bit different. Amberley Publishing actually contacted me and commissioned me to write it, so I was really quite excited. I thought, oh, wonderful, you know, I'm actually being asked to write something that I want to write.
Yeah.
But I thought, no, I didn't want to do the normal pirate book, you know, with all the familiar pirates, you know, Jack Rackham, Anne Bonny, Blackbeard. You know, they've already been done. Although they are in the book. But what I wanted to do was explore pirates with literally in truth and tale, you know, looking at it from the non-fiction point of view of, okay, these are the facts, but also looking at the fiction side. So I do have a little look at the movies, you know, Treasure Island, Peter Pan, and obviously Pirates of the Caribbean.
Right.
But also I wanted to look at, well, how they live. What did they do in their spare time? You know, I mean, there must have been some time when, you know, you're sailing along quite nicely, you know, all your sails are set night. What did you do? You know, and you sort of, they couldn't play cricket, for instance, you know, or baseball. You know, you have a hell of a job getting the ball back.
Right.
So I wanted to look at that. So they would have played cards and games and things like this, you know. And also, what did they eat? What did they wear? And I've got a chapter on the sea shanties.
Nice.
As well, you know. But I've also brought into the movies, and I've also looked at some of my favourite fiction.
Okay.
Frenchman's Creek, Treasure Island, Black Sails. I'd also mention that because I think that's a nice crossover as well. Yeah. So it's sort of one of those books that actually you can dip into in and out. You don't have to read it all in one go. You know, you can just pick up a chapter and, okay, this is a non-fiction one, this is a fiction one, you know. And I've written it quite in quite a light style. I actually do quite a bit of blogging, and I wanted to write it quite light and breezy. So it was, again, a little bit of fun to read. So, you know, it's not straight-laced all the way through.
Yeah, it's not a textbook. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, let's face it, some textbooks can be so dreary.
Oh, yes.
And I just thought, no, I wanted to make this just something that, you know, an enjoyable read, but while, you know, you pick some information up as you go along. Sure,
yeah, absolutely. And so did you find anything when you were looking into their favorite pastimes and things like that? Did you find anything that you found really surprising?
Not so much from the pastimes, although I learned an awful lot about card games at the time. I mean, one of the things, actually in Sea Witch, I do have a chapter where they are amusing themselves by having a chicken race.
Oh, nice.
Because and I have to confess, I'm not sure if that was actually true, but I do know that, you know, there were chicken racing. And I thought, well, I knew that they had hens aboard. So, you know, it doesn't take much of a stretch of imagination to think, well, okay, so they would have grabbed hold of the hens and sort of chased them up and down the deck, or, you
right.
know, the one that won, that's fine. The ones that lost get put in the pot.
Right. Yeah. There you go. That makes sense. Yeah. Because I would guess that they probably weren't gambling and betting on them because that was illegal in most ships, in most ships' doctrines. Yeah. So that must have been difficult for them to not bet on those.
Yes. But so we've got hens here. I must admit we've done a bit of hen racing ourselves. Thing is, you've only got to, hold two of them at sort of like one end of the garden,
right,
and then rattle their food pot. It's surprising how quickly they can move.
Oh, the things we do for fun in Devon. I like it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I put that down to research.
Yeah. That's great. That's so great. So now, these are not the first books you've written. You have a history of being an author. So tell me how. Let's talk about a little bit about your earlier series, the Pendragon Banner series and the Lost Kingdom Saxon series. How did you become a writer in the first place? What made you want to become a writer?
Oh, well, I wanted to write since early teenage days. Mm-hmm. I know I was writing when I was about 13. I'm 64 this year, so that's quite a while.
Yeah.
But I was always scribbling at school.
Interesting.
Got me into trouble several times. I wouldn't do my homework, or I wouldn't be sitting there doing a lesson. I'd be writing the next chapter of my story.
Sure. Doing the real work.
And I was always reading. But one of the things that back then, I desperately wanted a pony of my own. And we couldn't afford one. So I made one up and I wrote stories about owning a pony.
Nice.
I thought everybody did that. I was quite shocked when I discovered that people didn't. So yes, I was writing pony stories. Then I discovered science fiction and fantasy. This was around the time when Star Wars came out originally for the first time.
Yep.
And, I was a great fan of Doctor Who and Star Trek and everything, so I was writing those. And then I happened to come across a novel called The Crystal Cave by Mary Stewart.
Oh, great.
And it was about King Arthur.
Yeah, that's a good book.
And that was the first time that it dawned on me that if Arthur had been real, and I stress the if he had, he would have lived post-Roman. So,
sure.
4th, 5th century, 450, 500 sort of period, not the medieval knights in armour period.
Oh, okay, that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, for some reason, I just don't like those knights in armour type stories. They just don't click. And it was when I realised that, they weren't real, if you like, and that's when something all made sense to me. And I started researching post-Roman Britain, and Roman Britain, and slotted Arthur in there. But then, a little bit like with Sea Witch one, I couldn't find a novel that fitted in with what I wanted to read, apart from Mary Stewart's ones. So again, I thought, well, okay, I'll write my own then.
Yep.
So what I didn't realise is the book I wrote actually turned out to be a trilogy. I've written so much. But I happened to be friends with historical novelist Sharon K. Penman at the time. And she encouraged me, introduced me to her agent, who passed me over to William Heinemann, who's now part of Random House. They accepted me, and that's it. I became published.
Nice.
It was. I was actually accepted for publication a week after my 40th birthday.
Oh, how nice. So that was 24 years ago, if my math is right?
Yeah, something like that.
That's great. Well, so that's okay. No, that means you've carved out a nice career for yourself. That's fantastic.
Yeah, well, it's not been all plain sailing all the way through. Historical novels took a little bit of a downturn, probably about 10, 11 years ago now.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I'd written quite a few in the meantime, but then I actually got dropped by Heinemann. Because they didn't want any more historical novels. And I really sort of thought, I spent 2 weeks sobbing. What am I going to do now? Then I had the idea for Sea Witch, and I thought, well, blow it. I might as well, I can self-publish it. Let's bring it out myself.
Sure.
So I did.
Oh, nice. That's great. And how has your experience been with self-publishing versus going through somebody like Random House? Have you found it to be more fulfilling, more difficult?
I'm actually in a lucky situation because my King Arthur books and the Lost Kingdom ones are in America as mainstream with source books.
Okay.
So I've got a foot in both camps, if you like. And this one, the Pirate Truth and Tales, is a traditional one through a traditional publisher.
Okay.
So it's nice to look at things from both sides of the fence. I have to really say I do prefer the self-publishing because you're your own boss. You can do things how you want it.
Sure.
On the other hand, the advantage of being the traditional is that you can get your books into the shops. The publisher does a lot of the things for you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit swings and roundabouts. I mean, one of the things that I did send Sea Witch out to a few publishers and agents before I did decide to go indie. I just got the same answer back. Love the book. Everybody loves pirates, but they don't buy it as fiction.
Oh,
and I just got told that over and over. For adults won't buy pirate fiction, which is, well, me and you know that is a load of nonsense.
Yeah, definitely a load of nonsense. That's interesting, though. And I've always been a self-publisher with everything that I've done with all my music and comedy and all that kind of stuff too, and. It is, there's the give and take of, I get control over everything, but then I also have to do everything myself.
Yeah, and and the mistakes are your mistakes, sort of thing.
Yes.
But you learn by them, and it's. I think it sort of brought it home a little bit with doing Pirates, Truth and Tales, because they're organising some book signings and things over here in England, and they've designed some posters and things like that. And I thought, oh, wow, I haven't got to do it myself.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, they've designed really good posters. But then some of the other books, I look at them and I think, oh, dear, that's awful. Especially for my Arthur series, one of the covers, it's so awful, I call it the purple puke. It was so bad. And I'm talking quite a few years ago now. Fortunately, it's all out of print and everything now, but it was so awful. But, I didn't have any say over it. That's what the publisher wanted. That's what I got.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I do enjoy being in charge of my own cover. I've got a very good graphics designer, Avalon Graphics, which is actually another coincidence, tied up with the Arthur books. She designs my covers, superb covers for my indie books.
Nice.
And she does all my marketing posters and postcards and things for me as well, and my graphics for my website. So again, it all ties in. So it's almost my logo, my brand sort of thing. So I think the advantage of being with a publisher is that you're more likely to get books into bookstores and things like that. But I like being indie.
Yeah.
I really do. Yeah.
And bookstores won't exist very long anyway, so.
No, that's it. And it's, to be honest, self-publishing that probably wouldn't have taken off without Amazon.
Certainly.
Other stores are available.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Much as we hate them, but, it is so easy to sell your books. And, of course, I sell my books worldwide through it.
Right. Yeah. Have you noticed any particular markets around the world for your books that you weren't expecting?
A little bit. Australia is picking up.
Oh, interesting.
And I've also been picked up by a German publisher who's going to translate the Arthur books and the Sea Witch series.
Oh, nice.
And Sea Witch series is also being translated into Italian.
Oh, nice.
Through an Italian publisher. So that was unexpected. But I have to be honest, I do sell more in America.
Oh, okay. Well, we got lots of pirates
USA.
here.
Yeah.
Nice.
You're obviously, you're the non-existent people who don't read pirate books.
Right. Yes. All of us people that don't exist. Yes.
Yeah.
So when does the new book come out? What's the release date for that one?
Well, it's already released here in England.
Okay.
Actually came out last week.
Oh, nice.
And I have to admit, it's lovely. I'm really pleased with it.
Good.
And it's out in the US, I think, early May.
Okay, great. Well, I will make sure that we've got links to all that stuff, and so people can go pick it up. Where's a good place online for people to keep up with what you're doing and what you're writing?
Well, I've got my website. So basically, if you just Google for Helen Hollick,
okay,
and you will pick me up. I'm everywhere.
There you go. Nice.
You can't keep a good girl down.
Yeah. Good. Nice. I'll get all those links on the show notes there and everything. And so people can go pick up your books. And like I said, I'm really enjoying Sea Witch so far, and I'm going to read more of it. So, and which doesn't always happen. I've been known to quit in the middle of a book, but this one, that won't happen that way. Yeah.
With the series, I mean, Jezemiah he sort of goes straight.
Okay.
Obviously, he meets his girlfriend Tila, and marries her in a future book and everything. But I sort of thought, I don't want to keep the same things as just the piracy all the way through. But he just, my tagline is "Trouble follows Jezemiah Acorn like a ship's wake."
Okay.
So he's always in trouble. Then he gets back involved in piracy, and he gets back involved with being forced into doing some spying, and so there's. I sort of describe it actually as a little bit of a blend of Jack Sparrow, Hornblower, Richard Sharp from the Bernard Cornwell series, and Indiana Jones.
Okay.
Roll those all together, and that's Jezemiah.
Nice.
Oh, with a little bit of James Bond thrown in for good luck.
Nice. Oh, that sounds like some screenplays need to be written then.
Oh, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Well, Helen, this has been super fun. I'm glad we got a chance to talk. I appreciate you coming on.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, I hope we can talk again soon.
Yeah, and best wishes to all your listeners.
All right, thank you. I'll talk to you later.
Fair winds, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And there it is, friends. That was my interview with Helen Hollick, author of The Sea Witch Voyages and Pirates, Truth, and Tales. You can go get The Sea Witch Voyages now. Her website is helenhollick.net, and her last name is 2 L's, I-C-K, Hollick, helenhollick.net. So go pick up The Sea Witch Voyages. Get your pre-orders in for Pirates, Truth, and Tales coming out in May. And if you're enjoying the show, join us over on Facebook, facebook.com/underthecrossbones, twitter.com/undercrossbones, Make sure you're subscribed to the show through iTunes or whatever your podcatcher of choice is. And, of course, you can find all the show notes for this episode at underthecrossbones.com/086. If you want to help us out and support the show, that would be awesome. And you can do that by going to underthecrossbones.com/support. It's very easy. There's a little PayPal box there. Dump whatever amount of money you like in that PayPal box, whatever it's worth to you. There's an Amazon banner. Click that little Amazon banner. Buy yourself something nice, like maybe a Sea Witch Voyages book by Helen Hollick. And Amazon kicks me back a few shekels to keep the pirate ship afloat. If you want to be a sponsor of the show, that is cheap and easy. If you have a pirate service, a pirate product that you think pirates would dig, get in touch with me from there, and we will hook you up with a sponsorship slot. It's very, very easy, and it's very, very cheap. Under the Crossbones today is sponsored by Pirate Radio of the Treasure Coast, WKKC-DB, playing the best music in pirate radio talk. You can listen to Under the Crossbones on both of those stations. Just go to pirateradiothetreasurecoast.com or pirateradiotc.com. And don't forget to download the apps. They've got the Pirate Radio Treasure Coast app, which is the music station, and the Pirate Radio Talk app, which is their talk station. All right. Now, I got something I want to put out there just to see. This show takes quite a bit of time, actually, to put together. There's doing the interviews. There's doing this little talky part that I do here. There's doing the editing, putting it all together, getting it uploaded to the internet, putting it up on the website, the promotion, all that kind of stuff. So I am going to start seeking some help with some of that. And the first person that I am looking for, and this may be you, dear listener, or it might not be, and that's okay. I'm looking for somebody to help me book guests, to help me do some of the pitching for guests, and to do some of the schedule wrangling for guests, and that would be a giant help to me. Now, you are not going to get rich doing this. Why? Because I'm not getting rich doing this. And in fact, I make very little money doing this, so it's not a paid position. Think of it like an internship. Think of it, not an internship. That's kind of weird. Think of it like you want to come and help the show. You dig the show. Maybe you know lots of cool pirate people. And so I'm looking for somebody that will help me book interview guests for the show. Okay, so I'm just going to put that out there. If you're interested in maybe helping me out with that, drop me an email, phil@underthecrossbones.com, and we'll talk from there. All right? If you have been out at a cool pirate event recently, you've been to a festival, been to a cool pirate party, seen a cool pirate band, something like that, I would like to play your trip report on the show. All you have to do is leave me a quick voicemail on my Google Voice line. It's 408-599-2733. Just leave me that voicemail. Again, the number is 408-599-2733. 2733. And leave me your trip report. Tell me about the festival or the band you saw or whatever you've been doing. And if it's cool, I will play it on the show. All right? We will do that. Okay, friends, that is our episode for today. Thank you once again for tuning in. I appreciate it. Be sure to go look up Helen Hollick. Again, that's helenhollick.net. Pick up the Sea Witch Voyages on Amazon. Pick up, pre-order, do the thing for the Pirates, Truth, and Tales. And, make sure you're subscribed. Keep leaving the iTunes reviews. Those are always nice to look at. And tell your friends. That is the number one thing you can do that would help the show out, is tell your pirate friends. Okay, I appreciate you. I'll see you next week.